self-satisfied Lord of the Yadus had in mind when he behaved so contemptibly. Report, question of Prabhupada. It is clear to the enlightened that these doubts will arise in the minds and hearts of persons unfamiliar with the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, since time immemorial, great sages and enlightened kings like Parikshit Maharaj have openly raised their questions to provide the authoritative answer for all posterity. Text 29. Sukadeva Goswami said, the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them. For they are just like fire, which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. Purports. Great, potent personalities are not ruined by an apparent transgression of moral principles. Sridhara Swami mentions the examples of Brahma, Indra, Soma, Vishwamrita, and others. A fire devours all that is fed into it, but the fire does not change its nature. Similarly, a great personality does not fall from his position by an irregularity in behavior. In the following verse, however, Sukadeva Goswami makes it clear that if we try to imitate the great personalities ruling the universe, the result will be catastrophic. Text 30. One who is not a great controller should never imitate the behavior of ruling personalities, even mentally. If out of foolishness an ordinary person does imitate such behavior, he will simply destroy himself, just as a person who is not Rudra would destroy himself if he tried to drink an ocean of poison. Oh, boy, that's right. Purport by Divine Grace, it's Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Shiva, or Rudra, once drank an ocean of poison, and the result was that an attractive blue mark appeared on his neck. But if we were to drink even a drop of such poison, we would die immediately. Just as we should not imitate the pastime of Shiva's, we should not imitate Lord Krishna's activities with the gopis. We should clearly understand that while Lord Krishna certainly descends to demonstrate religious principles, he also descends to demonstrate that he is God and we are not. That also must be demonstrated. The Lord enjoys with his internal potency and thus attracts us for the spiritual platform. And thus attracts us to the spiritual platform. We should not try to imitate Krishna, for we will suffer severely. Text 31. The statement of the Lord's empowered servants are always true, and the acts that they perform are exemplary. when consistent with those statements. Therefore, one who is intelligent should carry out their instructions. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Ishvara is usually defined in Sanskrit dictionaries as Lord, Master, Ruler, and also as capable, potent to perform. Srila Prabhupada often translated the word Ishvara as controller, which brilliantly synthesizes the two fundamental concepts of Ishvara, namely a master or ruler and a capable or potent person. A master may be incompetent, but a controller is a master or lord who, in fact, makes things happen. The Parameshwara, the supreme Ishvara, the supreme controller, is, of course, God, Krishna, the cause of all causes. Although people in general, especially in the Western countries, are not aware of the fact powerful personalities control our universe. The modern impersonal concept of the universe depicts an almost totally lifeless cosmos in which the earth floats meaninglessly. Thus, we are left with the dubious ultimate purpose of preserving and reproducing our genetic code, which has its own ultimate purpose of adding another link to the meaningless chain of events by again reproducing itself. In contrast to this sterile, meaningless world concocted by ignorant materialists, the actual universe is full of life, personal life, and in fact, full of God who pervades and supports all that exists. The essence of reality is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his personal relationship with the innumerable living beings of whom we are samples. Some of the living beings are trapped in the illusion of materialism or identification with the material body, while others are liberated, aware of their eternal spiritual nature. A third class comprises those progressing in self-realization from the materialistic state of ignorance to the enlightened state of Krishna consciousness. Reality is ultimately personal and divine, and therefore it is not surprising that, as the Vedic literature reveals to us, our universe and other universes are managed by great personalities, just as our city, state, and country are managed by empowered personalities. When we democratically award a particular politician the right to govern, we vote for him because he has exhibited something we call leadership or ability. We think he'll get the job done. In other words, it is only after an individual acquires the power to govern that we vote for him. Our vote does not make him a leader, but rather recognizes a power in him coming from some other source. Thus, as Lord Krishna explained at the end of the 10th chapter of this Bhagavad Gita, any living being exhibiting an extraordinary power ability, or authority must have been empowered by the Lord Himself or by the Lord's energy. Those directly empowered by the Lord are devoted to Him, and thus their power and influence spread goodness throughout the world. Whereas those who are empowered by the Lord's illusory potency are in an indirect relationship with Krishna because they do not directly reflect his will. Of course, they do reflect his will indirectly, since it is by Krishna's arrangement that the laws of nature act upon the ignorant living beings, gradually persuading them through their journey of many lifetimes to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Thus, as politicians create wars, false hopes, and innumerable passionate schemes for the materialistic persons who follow them, the politicians are indirectly carrying out the Lord's program of allowing the conditioned souls to experience the bitter fruit of godliness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has translated the word Ishwaranam as those who have become powerful through knowledge and austerity. As one understands the nature and will of God and makes the personal sacrifice required to achieve excellence in spiritual life, one becomes empowered by the Supreme Lord to represent his, meaning Krishna's will, which one has intelligently recognized and accepted. The Supreme Personality of Godhead kindly descends to earth to show a vivid example of religious behavior. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 3.24, if I did not execute standard duties, the whole world would be misled and, in fact, destroyed. Thus, the Lord showed in his different incarnations how to act properly in this world. A good example is Lord Ramachandra, who behaved wonderfully as the son of King Dasaratha. But when Lord Krishna himself descends, he also demonstrates the ultimate religious principle, namely that the Supreme Lord is beyond all other living beings, and that no one can imitate his supreme position. This foremost of all religious principles, that the Lord is unique, without equal or superior, was clearly demonstrated in Lord Krishna's apparently immoral pastimes. Sorry. With the gopis, no one can imitate these activities without incurring dire consequences, as explained here by Sukdev Goswami. One who thinks that Lord Krishna is an ordinary living being subjected to lust, or who accepts his rasa dance as admirable and tries to imitate it, will certainly be vanquished as described in text 30 of this chapter. Finally, a distinction must be made between the Lord and his empowered servants. An empowered servant of the Lord, as in the case of Brahma, may experience a remnant of reactions to previous activities according to the law of karma. But the Lord is eternally free from any entanglement in the laws of karma. he is on a unique platform. Text 32. My dear Prabhu, when these great persons who are free from false ego act piously in this world, they have no selfish motives to fulfill. And even when they act in apparent contradiction to the laws of piety, they are not subject to sinful reactions. Text 33. How then could the Lord of all created beings, animals, men, and demigods, have any connection with the piety and impiety that affects his subject creatures? Purport. As explained in text 32, even great personalities empowered by the Lord are free from the laws of karma. Then, what to speak of the Lord himself? After all, the law of karma is created by him and is an expression of his omnipotent will. Therefore, his activities, which he performs out of his own pure goodness, is never subject to criticism by ordinary living beings. Text 34. Material activities never entangle the devotees of the Supreme Lord, who are fully satisfied by serving the dust of his lotus feet. Nor do material activities entangle those intelligent sages who have freed themselves from the bondage of all fruitive reactions by the power of yoga. So, how could there be any question of bondage for the Lord himself, who assumes his transcendental forms according to his own sweet will? Now, that's a nice, very nice verse. Text 35. He who lives as the overseeing witness within the gopis and their husbands, and indeed within all embodied living beings, assumes forms in this world to enjoy transcendental pastimes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. We certainly do not assume our bodies to enjoy transcendental pastimes, as the Lord does. We eternal souls have accepted material bodies by force because of our foolish attempt to enjoy this material world. The Lord's forms are all eternal, spiritual existence and cannot be reasonably equated with our temporary flesh. Since Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, dwelling within the gopis, their so-called husbands, and all other living beings, what possible sin could there be on his part if he embraces some of the beings he himself has created? What fault could there be if the Lord goes with the gopis to a secret place, since he already dwells within the most secret part of every living being, the core of the heart? Well, that's a good question. Text 36. When the Lord assumes a human-like body to show mercy to his devotees, he engages in such pastimes as will attract those who hear about them to become dedicated to him. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explains in this connection that when Lord Krishna descends to this world in his original two-handed form, out of kindness, he manifests that form in a way his devotees conditioned in human society can perceive and understand. Thus, here it is stated, Manusyanam deham astita. He assumes a human-like body. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura glorifies the Lord's conjugal pastimes, stating that these romantic affairs have an inconceivable spiritual potency to attract the polluted hearts of conditioned souls. It is an undeniable fact that any pure or simple hearted person who hears narrations of the loving affairs of Krishna will be attracted to the lotus feet of the Lord and gradually become his devotee. Text 37. The cowherd men, bewildered by Krishna's illusory potency, thought their wives had remained home at their side. Thus, they did not harbor any jealous feelings against him. Purport. Because the gopis loved Krishna exclusively, Yogamaya protected their relationship with the Lord at all times, even though they were married. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti quotes from the Ujjvala Nilamani as follows. Maya Kalpita Tadrik Stri Silanin Nan Nusu Yubi Na Jato Raja Devinam Pati Bi Saha Sangama. The gopis' jealous husbands consorted not with their wives, but with the doubles manufactured by Maya. I'm sorry. But with the doubles manufactured by Maya. Thus, men never actually had any intimate thus, these men never actually had any intimate contact with the divine ladies of Braja. The gopis are the internal energy of the Lord and can never belong to any other living being. Krishna arranged their apparent marriage to other men simply to create the excitement of Parakiya Rasa, the love between a married woman and her paramour. These activities are absolutely pure because they are the Lord's pastimes, and saintly persons since time immemorial have relished these supreme spiritual events. Text 38. After an entire night of Brahman had passed, Lord Krishna advised the gopis to return to their homes, although they did not wish to do so. The Lord's beloved consorts compiled with his command. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Lord Krishna explains, by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Rama's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. Thus, 1,000 ages entered within a single 12-hour night when Lord Krishna performs his rasa dance. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti compares this inconceivable compression of time to the fact that many universes fit neatly within the 40 mile range of earthly Vrindavana. Or one may consider that Mother Yasoda could not encircle the small abdomen of child Krishna with numerous ropes, and that at another time he manifested many universes within his mouth. The transcendence of spirituality above and beyond mundane physics is concisely explained in Srila Rupa Goswami's Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Evam Prabhu Priyanam Cha Damnas Cha Samayasya Cha Avichintya Prabhavad Tvad Atra Kinchin Na Durgatam. Nothing is impossible for the Lord. Let me say that. Nothing is impossible for the Lord, his dear devotees, his transcendental abode, or the time of his pastime. For all these entities are inconceivably powerful. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti further explains that the word Vasudevanu Modita indicates that Lord Krishna advised the gopis, quote, to assure the success of these pastimes, you and I should keep them secret. The word Vasudeva, a name of Krishna, also indicates Lord Krishna's plenary expansion, who acts as the presiding deity of consciousness. When the word Vasudeva is understood in this context, the word Vasudevanumodita indicates that the presiding deity of consciousness, Vasudeva, manifested embarrassment and fear of their elders within the gopis' hearts, and therefore it was only with great reluctance that the young girls returned home. Text 39. Anyone who faithfully hears or describes the Lord's playful affairs with the young gopis of Vrindavana will attain the Lord's pure devotional service. Thus, he will quickly become sober and conquer lust, the disease of the heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The extraordinary power of Lord Krishna's conjugal pastimes is clearly revealed here. Qualitatively, the Lord's spiritual loving pastimes are the diametric opposite of material lusty affairs. So much so that simply by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, a devotee conquers sex desire. By reading pornographic literature or hearing about material romance, we certainly do not conquer sex desire, but rather increase our lust. But hearing or reading about the Lord's conjugal affairs has exactly the opposite effect, because they are of the opposite nature, being purely spiritual. Therefore, it is by the causeless mercy of Lord Krishna that he exhibits his Rasa Lila within this world. If we become attached to this narration, we will experience the bliss of spiritual love and thus reject the perverted reflection of that love, which is called lust. as nicely put by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 2.59. Param drishtva nivartate. Once having directly experienced the Supreme, one will not return to material pleasures. Very important. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 33rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Rasa Dance. Okay, now we go to chapter 34. Nanda Maharaja saved and Sankakuda slain. So Nanda Maharaja saved and Sankakuda slain. All right. This chapter describes how Lord Shri Krishna saved his father Nanda from the clutches of a serpent and delivered a Vidyadhara named Sudarsana from the curse of the Angirasa sages. Excuse me. One day, Nanda Maharaja and the other cowherd men placed their family members on their bullock carts and went to the Ambikavan forest to worship Lord Shiva. After bathing in the Saraswati River and worshiping Lord Sadashiva, a form of Lord Vishnu, they decided to spend the night in the forest. As they slept, a hungry serpent came and began to swallow Nanda Maharaja. Terrified, Nanda cried out in distress, "Oh Krishna, oh my son, please save this surrendered soul." The cowherd men immediately awoke and began beating the serpent with wooden torches. But the serpent would not release Nanda. Then Lord Krishna came and touched the serpent with his lotus foot. The serpent was immediately freed from his reptilian body and appeared in his original form as a demigod. He told them about his previous identity and described how he had been cursed by a group of sages. Then he offered his homage at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and, on the Lord's order, returned to his own abode. Later, during the Dola Purnima festival, Sri Krishna and Baladeva enjoyed pastimes in the forest with the young women of Raja. The girlfriends of Baladeva and those of Krishna joined together and sang about their transcendental qualities. When the two lords became absorbed in singing to the point of apparent intoxication, a servant of the Kuberas named Sankakula boldly came forward and began abducting the gopis. The young girls called out, "Krishna, please save us." And he and Rama began to chase after Sankakuda. "Don't be afraid," Krishna called out to the gopis. In fear of the lords, Sankakuda left the gopis aside and ran for his life. Krishna chased after him, swiftly approached him, and with a blow of his fist removed Sankakuda's jewel together with his head. Then Krishna brought the jewel back and presented it to Lord Bala Deva. Text 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, one day the cowherd men, eager to take a trip to worship Lord Shiva, traveled by bullock carts to the Ambika forest. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word eka, the word ekada here indicates the occasion of Shiva Ratri. He further mentions that Ambikavana is in Gujarat province, near the city of Siddhapura. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura adds that the departure of the cowherd men specifically took place on the 14th lunar day of the dark fortnight of the month of Falguna. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti also quotes authorities who claim that Ambikavana lies on the bank of the Saraswati River, northwest of Mathura. Ambikavana is notable because within it are deities of Sri Shiva and his wife, goddess Uma. Text 2. O king, after arriving there, they bathed in the Saraswati and then devotedly worshipped with various paraphernalia the powerful Lord Pasupati and his consort, goddess Ambika. Text 3. The cowherd men gave the Brahmanas gifts of cows, gold, clothing, and cooked grains mixed with honey. Then the cowherds prayed, "May the Lord be pleased with us." Text 4. Nanda, Sunanda, and the other greatly fortunate cowherds spent that night on the bank of the Saraswati, strictly observing their vows. They fasted, taking only water. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti explains that Sunanda is the younger brother of Nanda Maharaja. Good to know. Text 5. During the night, a huge and extremely hungry snake appeared in that thicket, slithering on its belly up to the sleeping Nanda Maharaja. The snake began swallowing him. Oh my God. Imagine while you're sleeping, you're being swallowed by a gigantic snake. Text 6. In the clutches of the snake, Nanda Maharaja cried out, "Krishna, Krishna, my dear boy, this huge serpent is swallowing me. Please save me, who am surrendered to you." Text 7. When the cowherd men heard the cries of Nanda, they immediately rose up and saw that he was being swallowed. Distraught, they beat the serpent with blazing torches. Oh, that's good. That's very good. But even though the firebrands were burning him, the serpent would not release Nanda Maharaj. Then the Supreme Lord Krishna, master of his devotees, came to the spot and touched the snake with his foot. Text 9. The snake had all his sinful reactions destroyed by the touch of the Supreme Lord's divine foot, And thus he gave up his serpent body and appeared in the form of a worshipable Vidyadhara. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The words Rupa, Vidyadhara Chitam, indicate that the earnest wild snake appeared in a beautiful form, worshipable among the demigods called Vidyadharas. In other words, he appeared as the leader of the Vidyadharas. Text 10. The Supreme Lord Rishikesha then questioned this personality, who was standing before him with his head bowed, his brilliantly effulgent body bedecked with golden necklaces. Purport. The demigod was about to speak, and Lord Krishna wanted to focus everyone's attention to his words. Therefore, he personally inquired from the worshipable Vidyadhara, who was standing before him with his head bowed. Text 11. Lord Krishna said, "My dear sir, you appear so wonderful, glowing with such great beauty. Who are you? And who forced you to assume this terrible body of a snake?" Text 12 and 13. The serpent replied, "I am the well-known Vidyadhara named Sudarsana. I was very opulent and beautiful, and I used to wander freely in all directions in my airplane. Once I saw some homely sages of the lineage of Angira Muni. Proud of my beauty, I ridiculed them, and because of my sin, they made me assume this lowly form." It's got to be careful not to ridicule uh, superior personalities. Text 14. It was actually for my benefit that those merciful sages cursed me, since now I have been touched by the foot of the supreme spiritual master of all the worlds, and have thus been relieved of all inauspiciousness. Well, that's good. Text 15. My Lord, you destroy all fear for those who, fearing this material world, take shelter of you. By the touch of your feet, I am now freed from the curse of the sages. O destroyer of distress, please let me return to my planet. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. According to the Acharyas, the word apriche indicates that Sudarsana humbly requested the Lord for permission to return to his abode, where he might take up his duties again, certainly in a chastised state of mind. Text 16. O Master of mystic power, O great personality, O Lord of the devotees, I surrender to you. Please command me as you will, O Supreme God, Lord of all lords of the universe. Text 17. O infallible one, I was immediately freed from the Brahmana's punishment simply by seeing you. Anyone who chants your name purifies all who hear his chanting, as well as himself. How much more beneficial, then, is the touch of your lotus feet? Interesting. Text 18. Thus, receiving the permission of Lord Krishna, the demigod Sudarsana circumambulated him, bowed down to offer him homage, and then returned to his heavenly planet. Nanda Maharaj was thus delivered from peril, from all danger. So good. The inhabitants of Raja were astonished to see the mighty power of Sri Krishna. Dear King, they then completed their worship of Lord Shiva and returned to Raja, along the way respectfully describing Krishna's powerful acts. Text 20. Once Lord Govinda and Lord Rama, the performers of wonderful feats, were playing in the forest at night with the young girls of Raja. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse introduces a new pastime. According to the Acharyas, the occasion mentioned here is the Holika Purnima, a day also known as Gora Purnima. Well, we just passed that. Holika Purnima. Text 21. Krishna and Balaram wore flower garments and spotless garments, and their limbs were beautifully decorated and anointed. The women sang their glories in a charming way, bound to them by affection. Text 22. The two lords praised the nightfall, signaled by the rising of the moon and the appearance of stars, a lotus-scented breeze and bees intoxicated by the fragrance of jasmine flowers. Oh, that is wonderful. So when you smell this fragrance of jasmine flowers, like you're in heaven. Text 23. Krishna and Balarama sang, producing the entire range of musical sound simultaneously. Their singing brought happiness to the ears and minds of all living beings. Wow. Wonderful. Text 24. The gopis became stunned when they heard that song. Forgetting themselves, O king, they did not notice that their fine garments were becoming loose and their hair and garlands disheveled. Text 25. While Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama thus played according to their own sweet will and sang to the point of apparent intoxication, a servant of Kuvera named Sankakuda came upon the scene. Text 26. O king, even as the two lords looked on, Sankakuda brazenly began driving the women off toward the north. The women who had accepted Krishna and Balarama as their lords began to cry out to them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti, the demon Sankakuda shook a large stick at the beautiful young girls, thus frightening them and driving them toward the north. He did not actually touch them, as is corroborated by the following verse. Text 27. Hearing their devotees crying out, Krishna, Rama, and seeing that they were just like cows being stolen by a thief, Krishna and Balarama began to run after the demon. Text 28. The lords called out in reply, Do not fear. Then they picked up logs of the sala tree and quickly pursued that lowest of guyakas, who swiftly run away. Text 29. When Sankakuda saw the two of them coming toward him like the personified forces of time and death, he was filled with anxiety. Confused, he abandoned the women and fled for his life. Lord Govinda chased the demon wherever he ran, eager to take his quest jewel. Meanwhile, Lord Balarama stayed with the women to protect them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti explains that the women were fatigued from being driven away, and thus Lord Balarama protected them and consoled them as they rested. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna went after the demon. Text 31. The mighty Lord overtook Sankakuda from a great distance, as if from nearby, my dear king. And then, with his fist, the Lord removed the wicked demon's head, together with his crest jewel. Text 32. Having thus killed the demon Sankakuda and taken away his shining jewel, Lord Krishna gave it to his elder brother with great satisfaction as the gopis watched. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Various gopis perhaps thought that Govinda would give one of them the valuable jewel. To prevent rivalry among them, Sri Krishna happily gave the jewel to his older brother, Balarama. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 34th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Nanda Maharaj Saved the Sankakuda and Sankakuda Slain. Well, that's good. All the demons should be slain. Okay, now we go to chapter 35. The gopis sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. This chapter contains the songs the gopis sing to express their feelings of separation from Krishna when he goes to the forest during the day. As the gopis' mood of separation from Sri Krishna becomes ever more intense, his names, forms, qualities, and pastimes begin spontaneously manifesting in their hearts. Thus, they join together and sing as follows. Quote, the beauty of Krishna attracts the minds of all. When he stands in his threefold bending way and plays upon his flute, the siddhas, wives, flying in the sky with their husbands, become attracted to him and forget external reality. The bulls, cows, and other animals in the pastime become stunned in ecstasy, and they stand so still with the grass unchewed between their teeth that they appear like figures in a drawing. Indeed, even the unconscious rivers stop flowing. Wow. Just see when Krishna dresses himself in forest array and calls the cows names by blowing on his flute. Even the trees and creepers become so ecstatic out of love that their limbs display eruptions and their sap pours down like a torrent of tears. The sound of Krishna's flute causes the cranes, swans, and other birds in the lakes to close their eyes in deep sleep meditation. The clouds in the sky to gently rumble, imitating the flutes to vibration, and even such great authorities as the science of music as Indra, Shiva, and Brahma um, to become astonished. And just as we gopis are anxious to offer everything we have to Krishna, so the wives of the black deer follow him about, imitating him. When Krishna is returning to Braja, he constantly plays his flute while his young companions chant his glories, and Brahma and other chief demigods come to worship his lotus feet. Thus, the gopis, feeling intense separation from Krishna, sing his pastimes. Text number 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, whenever Krishna went to the forest, the minds of the gopis would run after him, and thus young girls sadly spent their days singing of his passing. Purport. Although the gopis enjoyed direct association with Krishna at night in the rasa games, during the day he went about his normal duty, tending its cows in the forest. At that time, the minds of the gopis would run after him. But the young girls had to stay back in the village and do their own duties. Thus, feeling the pain of separation, they would sing about Sri Krishna's transcendental pastime. Text 2 and 3. The gopis said, when Mukunda vibrates the flute he has placed to his lips, stopping its fold with his tender fingers, he rests his left cheek on his left arm and makes his eyebrows dance. At that time, the demigoddesses traveling in the sky with their husbands, the Siddhas, become amazed as those ladies listen. They are embarrassed to find their minds yielding to the pursuit of lusty desires. And in their distress, they are unaware that the belts of their garments are loosening. Purports. Srila Jiva Goswami states that this chapter consists of a collection of statements the gopis made at various times as they stood in small groups here and there in Vrindavan. O girls, this son of Nanda, who gives joy to the distressed, bears steady lightning on his chest and has a smile like a jeweled necklace. Now, please hear something wonderful. When he vibrates his flute, Vraja's bulls, deer, and cows standing in groups at a great distance are all captivated by the sound. And they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears. Stunned, they appear as if asleep or like figures in a painting. Purport. The word stira stira vidyut, steady lightning, refers to the goddess of fortune who resides on the chest of the Supreme Lord. When the animals of Vrindavana hear the sound of the flute, they become stunned in ecstasy and thus they stop chewing their food and cannot swallow it. Wow, that's interesting. The gopis, in separation from Krishna, marvel at the extraordinary effect of the Lord's flute playing. Srila Sridhara Swami gives the following explanation of the compound word hara hasa, which compares Lord Krishna's smile to a necklace. The word can mean he whose smile is brilliantly clear like a jeweled necklace, or he whose smile is reflected from his jeweled necklaces. Because while Krishna plays the flute, he bends his head down and smiles. The word can also mean he whose smile, he whose smile, like a jeweled necklace, casts its effulgence upon his chest, or he whose necklaces shine brilliantly, just like a smile. Text 6 and 7. My dear Gopi, sometimes Mukunda imitates the appearance of a wrestler by decorating himself with leaves, peacock feathers, and colored minerals. Then, in the company of Balarama and the cowherd, he plays his flute to call the cows. At that time, the rivers stop flowing. Wow. Their water stung by the ecstasy they feel as they eagerly wait for the wind to bring them the dust of his lotus feet. But like us, the rivers are not very pious, and thus they merely wait with their arms trembling out of love. Purport. The gopis state here that the sound of Krishna's flute causes even inanimate objects like rivers to become conscious, and then stunned in ecstasy, just as the gopis could not always be in Krishna's physical association. The rivers could not come to the Lord's lotus feet, although they desired the Lord. Their move, their movement was checked by ecstasy, and their arms, their waves trembled with love of Godhead. Wow, just imagine it. Hare Krishna. Text 8 to 11. Krishna moves about the forest in the company of his friends, who vividly chant the glories of his magnificent deeds. He thus appears just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exhibiting his inexhaustible opulence. When the cows wander onto the mountainsides and Krishna calls out to them with the sound of his flute, the trees and creepers in the forest respond by becoming so luxuriant with fruits and flowers that they seem to be manifesting Lord Vishnu within their hearts. As their branches bent low with the weight, the filaments on their trunks and vines stand erect out of the ecstasy of the love of God. And both the trees and the creepers pour down a rain of sweet sap, maddened by the divine honey-like aroma of the tulasi flowers. On the garland Krishna wears, swarms of bees sing loudly for him. And that most beautiful of all persons thankfully acknowledges and acclaims their song. By taking his flute to his lips and playing it. The charming flute song then steals away the minds of the cranes, swans, and other lake-dwelling birds. Indeed, they approach Krishna close, close their eyes, and maintaining strict silence, worship him by fixing their consciousness upon him in deep meditation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, and we'll stop with this verse, with this purport. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur has made several illuminating comments on these verses. He gives the analogy that just as when householder Vaishnavas hear a Sankirtana party approaching, they become ecstatic and offer obeisances. So the trees and creepers in Vrindavana become ecstatic when they heard Krishna's flute and bowed low with their branches and vines. The word Darsaniya Tilaka in text 10 indicates not only that the Lord is the most excellent to see, but also that he decorated himself with attractive reddish tilaka taken from the mineral-rich earth of Vrindavana's forest. Wow. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti also points out that Tulsi, although exalted in many ways, is not normally considered an especially fragrant plant. However, early in the morning, Tulsi emits a transcendental fragrance that ordinary people cannot perceive, but that transcendental personalities fully appreciate. The bees who are privileged to swarm about the flower gardens, warned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, certainly appreciate this fragrance. And Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti quotes from the Bhagavatam 3.15.19 to the effect that the most fragrant plants in Vaikuntha also appreciate the special qualifications of Tulsi Devi. Well, yeah, she has a superior fragrance. The word Sandita Venu in text 10 indicates that Lord Krishna placed his flute firmly upon his lips, and the melody emanating from that flute is certainly the most enchanting of sounds, as the gopis describe in this chapter. Okay, I think our time is up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll stop right there. And the word Sandita Venu in text 10 indicates that Lord Krishna placed his flute firmly upon his lips, and the melody emanating from that flute is certainly the most enchanting of sounds, as the gopis described in this chapter. Well, let's meditate on that transcendental melody emanating from the flute of Krishna, because it's the most chanting of sounds, as the gopis described in this chapter. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, who has taken so much efforts to help us understand the transcendental nature of the gopis and the wonderful pastimes that they undertake in the presence of Lord Krishna. And the fact that Lord Krishna plays the flute very nicely, and the melody emanating from that flute is certainly the most enchanting of sounds, as the gopis describe in this chapter. Hari Bol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Okay, no questions, no comments? Then, my dear devotees, please have a very nice day today and meditate on the wonderful things that we heard today, especially the fact that it says, uh, maddened by the divine honey-like aroma of the tulsi flowers on the garland Krishna wears, swarms of bees sing loudly for him. Bees are singing. Just imagine how transcendental that is. And that most beautiful of all persons thankfully acknowledges and acclaims their song by taking his flute to his lips and playing it. The charming flute song then steals away the minds of the cranes, swans, and other lake dwelling birds. Indeed, they approach Krishna, close their eyes, and maintaining strict silence, worship him by fixing their consciousness upon him in deep meditation. Hare Krishna. Very nice, very wonderful. And of course, it says here in the purport, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur has made several illuminating comments on these verses. He gives the analogy that just as when householder Vaishnavas hear a Sankirtana party approaching, they become ecstatic and offer obeisances to the trees and creepers in Vrindavana, become ecstatic when they heard Krishna's flute and bowed down with their branches and vines. The word darsaniya tilaka in text 10 indicates not only that the Lord is the most excellent to see, but also that he decorated himself with attractive reddish tilaka taken from the mineral-rich earth of Vrindavana forest. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti also points out that Tulsi, although exalted in many ways, is not normally considered an especially fragrant plant. However, early in the morning, Tulsi emits a transcendental fragrance that ordinary people cannot perceive, but that transcendental personalities fully appreciate. The bees who are privileged to swarm about the flower garlands worn by the Supreme Personality of Godhead certainly appreciate this fragrance. And Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti quotes from the Bhagavatam 3.15.19 to the effect that the most fragrant plants in Vaikuntha also appreciate the special qualifications of Tulsi Devi. The word Sandita Venu in text 10 indicates that Lord Krishna placed his flute firmly upon his lips, and the melody emanating from that flute is certainly the most enchanting of sounds, as the gopis describe in this chapter. Just imagine how wonderful the sound of the flute is. Okay, well, thank you very much, my dear devotee. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please meditate on these wonderful statements so that all nonsense things will go away from your consciousness and you'll be full of wonderful transcendental pastimes. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj. I think only one thing is obviously there's one message Prabhupada shares about the intimate pastimes of the Lord, wherein if we hear a materialistic explanation of how romance or intimacy happens in the material world, we get more contaminated.
Yes,
And then, whereas when we hear about the Lord's pastimes,
we become purified.
we become purified.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is not something that should be publicly discussed. Is that right?
Well, it could be misinterpreted by mundane people.
Hmm.
They might think it's the same thing as mundane nonsense.
Correct.
Yeah. So you have to be attuned to transcendental uh, pastimes, not misinterpreted as something mundane. That's why it's good to hear this in the association of genuine devotees. Materialistic people cannot understand the transcendental nature of what we're hearing. Therefore, they should not be in the association of devotees. These are all what you would call uh, special pastimes that only devotees can understand. The others, they can understand baseball, football, basketball, all the balls, but not transcendental activities of the gopis and the pastimes of Krishna. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Ram,
Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
and be happy. That should be our motto. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Thank you very much, my dear devotees, and have a good day today.